Welcome to the Faith Science Podcast, Episode 1. I'm your host, Jerry Swafford. On this podcast, we explore the integration of science with faith. I met today's guest just, I think it's exactly 1 month ago. It was May 21st, 2024, and we were both at the Offer Mastery Live event put on by Myron Golden in Tampa, Florida. And they would put all of the general admission attendees in a big hotel ballroom for lunch, and that's where we met. We were at a round table with 8 to 10 other people, and we would go around the table and people would ask, well, what is it that you do, and what is it that you do, and we would kind of exchange information and everything. When they came to me, I said, well, I think I want to do something with education, I guess, but not sure what exactly. So they said, well, what do you do though? And I said, well, I'm a robotics engineer, and my work has been with using artificial intelligence to create controllers for balance and stability in robots. And so everybody's eyes kind of got wide, and this person specifically was like, okay, we need to talk. I've got all of these ideas for you. There's all of these things in education that you could be doing. And I just, before that point, didn't really understand what I could be working on. And after that, I had a much better understanding. Later on at the conference, there was a keynote speaker that began to talk about the different eras that we've gone through in history. And the first era is the agricultural age, then it was the industrial age, and then he went through these different ones. Then he finally said, then we are currently in the age of AI. And I get a text and it's from this person. And he said, this is your age and your time. And so that just really got me to think, okay, I know I know kind of the direction I need to be going in. So it made sense for him to be the first person on the podcast. He is a native of Haiti. He is currently an educator, a CTE specialist with the Palm Beach County School District in Florida. We'll talk more about what that is. He is a graduate of the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and he is a husband and a father. We'll talk about that too. Married to Jessica, has 3 daughters. My guest today is, I should have gotten with him to make sure I have the name exactly right, but he is Moise Derosier. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely, Doc.
Okay.
It's a
All
pleasure to
right.
be here today. Yes.
Well, it's good to be here. So if I gave my little introduction that's kind of based on LinkedIn and Facebook and just our couple of conversations, but what if someone were to ask you who you are, what would you say?
Yeah, I think you've done a good job about. I am a father and a husband,
Uh-huh.
person of faith first. I should probably put that sequence
Yeah,
first.
yeah.
And that's how I love life and love to people, love God and love people.
Yeah.
Again, that sequence first, and want to make an impact in the world in the fields where I have the influence.
Okay.
That's how I will describe myself. I am not what I have and what I know,
Mhm.
but rather I am who my Savior defined me to be.
Right. So you are a person of faith. We'll talk about like how that fits into science. You're a former math teacher, and now
Mhm.
you are doing career and technical. You just told me what this is: career and technical education specialist.
Yes.
So tell us what that means exactly.
Okay. So in our school systems, you can think of it as having two sides. One is focus on the academic side, where maybe we're teaching kids how to read and write and how to
Hmm.
do math and science. But there, especially around secondary level. But we have another side, sometimes generally classified as electives. But we have a particular sort of electives that prepare students for the workforce. So
Okay.
this is what we call, in the past, they used to call vocational programs. And
Okay.
so
Right.
we run away from that name. So now we call them career and technical education. Essentially, it's providing program outlines that prepare students for the workforce. And
Hmm.
it involve many different domains or career cluster, be it engineering, being the health sciences, being the business side, whether an entrepreneurship or and business. So that's what we that has been my role for the last 7 years, where we are here in Palm Beach County, making sure our students very early on get a sense of what they would like to do, and we provide programming to help them become or to pursue those things, or to expose them. Sometimes finding out what you don't want get you closer to what you want. So
Yeah,
that's
that's true.
basically in a nutshell.
Okay. So you were a math teacher. So are you still in the classroom, or how does that work to be a
No,
CTE specialist?
yeah. So I left the classroom about 9 years ago. So I started teaching in 2004. Around 2013, I left the classroom to work with this department. And
Okay.
when I was a math teacher, I taught the whole gamut from algebra all the way to AP stats. I had a
Mm,
blast.
yeah.
Enjoy having impact on students. And as I
Right.
was sharing with you, one of my former students, like you, has a PhD in artificial intelligence. So so that's the and I have others we have gone and made great things. So I had really a very successful career as a teacher, to the point two of my former students invite me to be best man in the weddings. I mean, these
Oh,
are right. These are
yeah.
I am not their contemporaries, right? I'm more advanced in age, but for
Right.
them to be able to find enough meaning to make me their best man, so
Yeah.
it speaks volumes. So I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that career.
Okay. So if we go all the way back to, so you're from Haiti, is that right?
Yes, yes.
So if we go all the way back, what how do you go from Haiti to, it's Orlando, is that right? Where you are
And
now?
West Palm Beach. I'm
West
in the
Palm
West Palm Beach
Beach.
area. Yes,
Okay, so how do you get from Haiti to America being a CTE specialist? Like what, I mean, not every minute
yes,
of it, but I mean, what,
yeah, yeah.
how
Well,
does
what's
that
the
have
journey?
some,
Yeah,
what is the journey to that? I don't,
yes,
I,
absolutely.
we actually haven't
So,
talked about this yet.
yeah, yes, yes. It's a very interesting story with a lot of twists and turns, but I think it started back in 1990. We have a president that his name was Jean-Bertrand Aristide. He was a former Catholic priest who became president, and about 8 months later, it was overthrown, and so the country went to a tremendous political trouble and political problem, worse than we are facing now, of course.
Hmm.
And so there was a massive migration, and so part of my family were involved in that massive migration, where we ended up in a refugee camp in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and I was
Oh,
given the okay to come to the U.S. To settle here as an immigrant. So that's basically here my story. And since I came, I South Florida is
yeah.
close home.
Okay.
There was already a very strong Haitian community here,
Hmm.
so that's where I settle. Although I
So
believe in other. Mhm.
how old are you at at this
I
point?
was 17 when I arrived here.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're
Um,
17, you come to come to Florida where there's a Haitian population
yes.
already. Okay.
Yes. And then from there, I think I started in 10th grade here, finished the last 2 years of high school, and I met a wonderful teacher, who was my math and physics teacher, become a
Mhm.
mentor to me. And with his guidance, was able to get some scholarships to go as an alumni, Calvin College in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which
Okay.
produce a lot of big intellectual guys that combine faith and science together. For
Uh-huh.
example, you talk about Alvin Plantinga, which is a major Christian philosopher who has influenced a lot of place. So
Okay.
thankfully, I was able to go, and that's where I get my bachelor's in mathematics and economics.
Mhm.
I really left Florida to major, and you're talking about faith and science, to
Right.
major really in engineering and theology.
Okay. Wow.
Yes.
All right. That is a
that,
okay,
that did
that's
not
something.
happen. I do study engineering for 3 years, and then on my senior year, I dropped out. But it was that journey really to to try to and make sense of the world,
Yeah.
via and make sense also of my own faith. So it was a really wonderful place to be.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe I'll get a chance to share with you my own while there at a Christian college. You have your own faith crisis, right?
Mhm.
And thankfully, I was in a good place to help restore me now,
Yeah.
and I think it was a wonderful journey from and a shortcut, right, from Florida, uh, um, and then from Haiti to Florida to Michigan,
Yeah.
where I I had my bachelor, and then we returned back to Florida to teach. Based on the guidance of my mentor, it was around 2000 era where we suffer a massive economic crisis. You remember the tech bubble burst?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I couldn't find jobs. Uh, um, I couldn't find job in Michigan, so my mentor told me, hey, you can pursue a career in teaching. So I become the accidental teacher, so
Oh,
to speak. Yeah,
okay.
so it wasn't planned, and I enjoyed and loved it, and I'm still in that space.
Yeah.
But and then as I was teaching, I felt the need to improve. I wanted to do policy, particularly international policy.
Mhm.
So I had a chance to go and study at Harvard to major in international education policy, where I had a chance to study different education systems around the world,
Yeah.
uh, with the purpose of finding out what lessons can we learn from one context and under what condition those lessons can be are transferable. So
Right.
that's basically in a nutshell
Right.
the journey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
so you were saying that you're in Michigan and you are originally going to study engineering and theology, but during that point there was a crisis of faith that you described. So what does that mean? Was engineering pulling you away from belief in God, or like what was this exactly?
Well, I think so. I went to a liberal arts college,
Uh-huh.
and the very strong Calvinist background,
Okay.
and which I enjoy because I think there's an aspect of it that encourages the life of the mind, right?
Mhm.
It is is a space where God, they don't have a problem with questioning, God. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't think God has a problem with that anyway, but it is a place that calls us to love God with all of our mind, with all of our soul, with all our being. And
Right.
the life of the mind for them is really big. I came from Haiti, grew up in the Nazarene tradition.
Okay.
Obviously, in Haiti, there are a lot of exposure to the Bible that you're not aware of. And then I had other religious traditions that as I grew up, I became part of. But it was the first time I was introduced to the history of the Bible,
Okay.
right? How the Bible came about. Now, because I have a very naive background, so when you hear that stuff for the first time,
Mhm.
you're like, wait a minute, this was based on oral tradition over time.
Right.
And And every crisis of faith began with questioning the word. I mean, that's if you can,
Yeah.
from the Garden of Eden, it's who told you, right?
Right.
Did God really say? So every crisis, where even with the temptation of Jesus, if you are really the Son of God. So it begins with that stuff, right? It
Right.
begins at the very basic of the structure. How can I accept this oral tradition to be truth without any without any issue.
Right.
And Thankfully, I had a good religion teacher who helped me with that crisis because I don't know. I have seen friends who have gone through it, and with all of my best effort trying to pull them out.
Yeah.
Um, and it's hard, especially if you're going to sources that are different than Christian, to make sense of
Mm,
whatever issues that you're facing. Sometimes you run, whether you run to somebody in the field where there are explanations for all of those doubts that you may have, all of those issues that we can answer them within Christian's faith. Often, when people have the struggle, they go to outside sources that
right.
will already will blow, will put a nuclear weapon to a nuclear weapon to that crack and expose it. So
Yeah.
thankfully, my religion teacher sat me down and gave me example. Yeah, there were oral tradition. That's true, but you cannot interpret this in the modern sense,
Hmm.
because the memories, right? The fact that it was oral tradition doesn't mean there were, in engineering we study filter, right? When there are certain waves, it goes to a filter, and then there will be things that happen to it.
Right.
Um, the fact that it was an oral tradition doesn't not make it true, because, or make it unreliable, because back then people rely on the oral tradition for a lot of things, right? I mean,
Right.
these days somebody asks me for my wife's number, I don't remember it fully, right?
Right.
But years ago, I could remember hundreds of numbers
Yeah.
when I had to.
Yeah.
So that religion teacher who sat me down and helped me overcome that sense of doubt about how that can be can be true. But that where it really, that was a big thing for me. It's around
Yeah.
how that stuff can be true if it was past oral tradition and then documented later.
Yeah.
So that was, and I think too, a lot of that faith crisis also is tied to our walk as well, how close
Hmm.
we are to the source. Often, most of our faith crisis began as you are also getting farther, and
Yeah.
you become exposed as well. And I think, even when I reflect on it, it wasn't not only about how the story, the Bible, came to be about, but also about how my own walk may have been impacted as well.
Right.
I was in college, was not at around my tribe, so to speak,
Hmm.
around my friends who would encourage me. So you that also reflect that period of time as well. But thankfully, man, I
Yeah.
survived it and came out even stronger than I was prior to it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I think this happens for a lot of people. They go to college and you kind of get separated from the people maybe you're regularly worshiping with or people that are watching over you. And you just think,
Mhm.
oh, I'm okay. And then you go out there and then you come across some question. So it sounds like you had never really considered the idea of the reliability of the scriptures or something like that. That was not, I guess,
Correct.
in Haiti at least, it was not really a big
No, none of
thing
my
that's
tradition.
taught.
Correct. We've never talked about that and the sense. I mean, I mean, I have a very naive view of it, right? This was to
Right.
the point. It was what it is. I never, no, nobody had exposed me to that kind of, to the history of it.
Right.
And I think that, this once, it's a new thing that you ever heard of,
Mhm.
and it's new to you.
Right.
Mhm.
And then if that and
Yeah.
then when that happens for some people, if they're at some secular place or some place where there's nobody and everybody is teaching
Yep.
that, yeah, that this means because it was an oral tradition, it must not be
Mhm.
true.
Yeah.
And then you have no answer and you've never
Correct.
heard this before.
Yep.
Maybe it sounds like you have some friends that maybe that happened to, and it was just very difficult
Absolutely.
to help them come
I
back.
had friends. Yeah, I have friends that happened to,
Mm,
who was the director of finance at his church.
mm,
One of the stronger Christians that I know.
yeah,
That stuff happened to him. Rather than look for explanation within the faith,
right,
you go and look at explanation elsewhere. And what
right,
people will do, they'll take the advantage and and just, lead you to a way
yeah,
that it will was hard to recover. Um,
yeah,
and especially too, if the environment where you are when you start having doubts, it's really good to have a community that knows how to deal with things like that, that are sensitive enough.
Right.
Because as the person having question, the wrong thing to do is necessarily challenge them head on about the doubts that they have.
Right.
Like everything, like I think it's a Newton law, for every action there's an equal and opposite
Yeah.
reaction.
Yeah.
So as you push back, they are pushing back in their faith. And what they're gonna do, they're gonna look for evidence elsewhere to counter your argument. And that's where I believe in this case, where he was having some doubts and some questions, and then the folks in the environment couldn't answer him, and they began to accuse him. And I think a lot of church hurt happened as a result, rather than
Mm,
bring him to the fold, understanding this is normal part of the Christian walk.
right.
We have explanations for those within our own tradition. He was pushed and pushed to the point where, you know, with with his environment, he become very adversarial, antagonistic with the people within.
Yeah.
And of course, the more they push, the more he push. The gap become
Yeah.
wider.
Yeah. I come across people that say something similar that, and sometimes you can come across young people that say, well, when I asked these questions when I was in
Mhm,
Bible class, people just
mhm.
kind of
Yeah,
either shut down or they didn't
yeah,
want me to ask. And so there are plenty of people out here in the world that will answer your question, but it's going to be in a
yeah,
way that's actually not even true or has bad assumptions
yeah,
behind it. And so, yeah, I part of what I want to do with this is just show that sometimes science is thought of as this place where you can ask questions, but faith is thought of as you better not ask any questions.
yeah.
And that's just not that's
That's
just
not
not
true.
true. And
Yes.
you'll if that's what faith is for you, then you actually will end up maybe not
Yep.
having much faith. And as soon as something does come, you have no answers, you have uh yeah, you have no way to combat that. So
It could come
it's
out. Yeah.
yeah, so that's there's one of my favorite scriptures is in First Thessalonians where it says, "Test all things, hold fast to what is good." And this
Yes.
idea is question, like
Yes.
test it. If you look at
Yes.
When Christ comes back from the dead, he says to Thomas, "Hey, look, let
Yeah.
me show you." So he doesn't just get onto him. Look at my
Yeah.
hands, look at my feet, look at
Yeah.
my side,
Yeah.
examine it. And
Yeah.
that's the way Christianity is. It's not
Yeah.
this thing where you aren't asking questions. Ask all the
Yeah.
questions you want, and so
Yeah.
be feel free to do that. So that's uh that's a really
Yeah. And that
interesting story. Yeah.
absolutely, and that's what I like the college I went to, because we it's encourage the life of the mind as a very it's a big um, it's a very big influence. Obviously, I do believe you need to encourage the life of the heart as well, right?
Yeah. Of course.
So you have to find that
Of course. Yeah.
that balance as well. But it was a very it had a very impactful or very big influence on my life as a Christian. So there's a lot of issues people have with science. I don't.
Hmm.
It's just, I don't
Yeah.
have those. I don't have those issues. They can't. I am in a place where my faith is so strong. In fact, science is an evidence for my faith,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It's not the other way around. Uh,
No.
uh, the heavens declare the glory of God, and
Right.
I think scientific truth is part of that glorious truth.
Hmm.
So it's not an issue for me at all.
Yeah.
I don't see those things as being uh, antithetical. I just see as the part of the same coin, revealing the self truth about God itself. That's what I enjoy being in that space,
Hmm.
and I'm very thankful to God put me in that space, because if it happens elsewhere, if I experience this crisis elsewhere, wonder whether I would recover,
Right.
because the explanation that would provide to me would open that gap rather than close it for
Yeah.
me. Mhm.
So, have you found so as you went into education, sometimes people say, so here in America, there are people that were in school back in the 50s and 60s, and they say, well, back then we prayed in public school and we did these different things, and now everything's just so bad. Have you found that uh, there has been an opposition to faith in the education system for you, or maybe not? I don't know. Being in
So,
Florida, it may be different.
yeah, that's a wonderful question. I think as a person of faith, you can still find a way to have influence on kids, right?
Right.
It You may not be able to open the Bible and show them John 3:16,
Yeah.
but I think people for this faith, once the basis of education to me is love, right? You can't All the basis of being a human being is love.
Yeah.
You cannot do anything meaningful if you don't have love. And education allows that every day to practice this,
Right.
to practice love to our students, so that they can, and then you will have a chance to share with them what is the basis of my love. Why am I able to love you and care for you? So I don't think it prevents us as a person of faith to express ourselves, because nobody can express us from loving the other.
Right.
And when I was in the classroom, the subject I was teaching was to me a tool. Really, was I was teaching them is how to be a good human being in the world, how to be a
Yeah.
loving human being. And math was a tool for me. It was a tool to drive that conversation. I remember one of my class, I had this young lady from outside, and I mean, she was living away from her parents,
Oh.
and she was living with her grandma. I don't know what happened in that day, but in that class, she began to tear up, and I went in to see her, and then she wouldn't share. And then, as I was teaching, I drew on art in the board, um, to just told her, I don't know what you're going through, but know that you are loved
Hmm.
and cared for.
Yeah.
And then that continues. The Over time, she began to draw the heart in my class. But at the beginning of class, she will come and draw the heart in my class, and that event in my mind, just I forgot about that incident.
Hmm.
And then years later, I think a few months later, I asked her, why are you drawing the art on the board every time you come to class? He said, Mr. D, you don't remember? There was one time I was sad and crying because I think I missed my grandparents and my mom. And then you draw the art and
Yeah.
and the board. These are instances where, it was a great way for me to show her I could care less about the math I'm teaching you. But
Right.
what I wanted to teach you is really how to be a good human being, how to be a loving human being, how to care for the other as it was yourself. In fact, is a even better model is how to love as Jesus loves.
Right.
Um, and so that's how I approach my an education. It was my mission field.
Hmm.
It was the space where I could evangelize without, slapping on kids' face John 3:16. I could do it, right? I could do
Yeah.
it in a way where they know, no matter whether I'm giving you an F or you're having a D in my class, that doesn't define you in my eyes. I
Right.
still love you the same way I love the fellow with the A students. In fact, some of my F students, Doc, would stay after class, and when we'll have deep philosophical deep
Oh.
philosophical conversation around life and everything. And I'm like, dude, you are so talented. If you put
Yeah.
a lot of work, you will do better in my math class. But it was so welcoming that they know I didn't look them in as a grade. I was looking as a human being that needs love
Right.
and compassion. And I think if any person approach the basis, I don't believe you can teach, you can impact people without loving them. I
Hmm.
know people. There's a saying that says, Don't show me something about the way you show people value is by showing how much you care for them.
Right,
And I
right,
think love is the basis of that. You cannot teach without love. And
right.
it's not something that necessarily you learn in an pedagogy book, but I feel that is necessary until you love these kids to the point that they will do anything for you because they know whatever feedback you're giving them is coming from a place of love. They know that you really care about them as a human being.
Yeah,
They will do. They will raise to the occasion, and and that has been my career. And in partly it's because I, at the beginning of our conversation, I share with you I had a teacher who showed me love, right?
yeah,
Who had that impact on me, and I wanted to emulate in him. I wanted to be like him, and and that's how I approach my work in the classroom now. You're not gonna have the. I know it's. We know we live in a secular world, and we know the world has changed, but we have to adapt to it. We have to adapt to it, and that to me, how to love, nobody can stop that.
right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would assume that you also apply this in your parenting, right? So I know you're writing this book
Yes.
about raising successful children. Can you talk
Mhm.
about that? Talk about your family. I'm sure love is like at the center of how you are leading your family and leading your daughters specifically.
Yes.
Like how does that work?
Absolutely. I think it that's the basis, and I think part of it is because I go to a source, which is my faith, where I
Hmm.
find love. Therefore, I have plenty of it to give,
Okay, yeah.
and I think particularly for parents, and I have a lot of criticism for. I grew up, and I have a lot of criticism around, especially those of us who grew up in an environment where our ancestors were enslaved.
Mm,
It's particularly important that we really reflect how we raise kids,
okay.
um, and the way we do that. Um, and and then there are things that we use, right? There are tools that we use that we were learned through that tragic experience our ancestor went through, and it was passed on to us. And
Mm,
so we need to reflect on things that we are using to raise kids.
mhm.
So that sense of love means how I speak to my children matters, right?
Right,
Because as the scripture says, life and death is in the power of the tongue.
right.
So the way I speak to them, the tone of voice, the kind of words that I use are very intentional. Even when I was in the classroom, I was very careful around the kind of words I use to interact with kids or to describe kids, whether in front of them or whether when they are not present.
Hmm.
Because I do think those things are very powerful.
Right.
Folks may not remember all the good things that you've done for them, but they will surely remember the negative things that you spoke
Yeah.
around. And some of those things, especially for words, when it's spoken, you cannot take that stuff back. So I'm very careful and very intentional how I speak to my daughters and how I speak to my students. There is a story I share with you about
Mhm.
this famous biologist. In fact, he won a Nobel Prize. Is that 2002? His name is Sir Gordon. He's an
Okay.
English fellow. And when he was a student, he has this teacher that told him he couldn't be a biologist. The idea of him to be a scientist, he needs to forget about this.
Mhm.
And the teacher wrote a note, and I'll share that note with you. Uh, Um, I'll share the note that
Yeah. Well,
with you. But the teacher wrote him a note, and he kept that note for almost 4 years.
hmm,
And on the day he won the Nobel Prize, he shared with the world what the teacher had told him. And this is the fellow Sir Gordon, I think, is the father of modern cloning, right? He become
okay.
very famous scientist, very and influential. But for 40 something years, he kept that note on his desk as a, I don't know, as a source of reminder or as a source of energy for his work.
Yeah.
And I said, I know that teacher is long dead, but I said, this is the teacher I do not want to be. I do not want to be the person or the parents 40 years from now that here is the thing, among all the good things that I may have done, he's that's what my students or my child will remember.
Yeah.
So being very intentional about the kind of word that we use, the kind of space that we create for them, you have to be really reflective. You cannot haphazardly raise your kids. For example, in my own home, one of the things I see that works is the availability of books in the
Hmm,
house. I mean, that's probably the most item that we have in the home.
okay.
And I have uh, two girls that are of reading age. My second daughter, she's in third grade. She's reading at ninth grade level.
Wow.
My first daughter, she's also really brilliant young lady. They are not addicted to the device or to TV because in the home we are very intentional. They saw me reading, they saw their mom reading, so we
Hmm.
are very intentional about her books very early on. Even my 2-year-old, she has her own time she's reading, right? She
Yeah.
only can see images. She has book that she is reading. Their vocabulary is 10 times better than mine. Sometimes they make fun of my accent or some of my words. But I was very intentional
Yeah.
about that piece because I know the power reading will have on the life of kids. There are times in the house where TV is turned off. No, now they play Minecraft, they play all the stuff, but they know
Hmm.
there was parting time during the day. This is reading time. In fact, my second daughter, sometimes I have to warn her, you are crossing the street, please stop reading. Or sometimes she will be so much into reading, I say, have you read your Bible today? I don't want you to fill yourself with so much of
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
I want you to read the Bible as well. And she said, yes, Daddy, I read the Bible as well. So this is and we are very intentional about that piece because we know the power of reading.
Right.
There is research that says third grade reading determine how many prisons that they have. I know they're gonna create later. I don't know whether that's true or not, but this is a common thing
Probably
that
is.
yeah we read. So the idea of reading as being important, the idea of being intentional. So
Hmm.
what sort of stuff you expose them to?
Yeah.
Um, what's the environment that you create for them? I think these are things I think parents need to be very intentional around. The systems won't do those things for you, unfortunately. Like
No.
the purpose, the system won't teach your kids around purpose, how to find their purpose. Um, you parents, you are their first teacher of your child will have. So that's just from you. They're gonna learn love. It's gonna you. They're gonna learn about who they are. So you are so critical and the life of your kids, and nobody can do those earlier work for you. They can help
Right.
you out, but you as a parent has to be really intentional how you know how you're gonna raise your kids. And I in the book I provide a few few frameworks
Yeah.
on how to do that.
Okay. Now I'm a
Mhm.
single guy, so whenever I get a married man with
Yeah.
kids, I gotta ask, what, as a single guy, what should I be doing right now? What should I be thinking about to prepare? What have you got for me?
Absolutely. I think the first choice is who you choose to marry. All
Okay.
right. That's gonna be, to me, after your faith, is the most single important decision that you will do in your life. Not so I know that you have a PhD in artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
That is cakewalk, right? I
Right.
think who you choose as your partner, it's okay. And that's why you might need divine help, divine assistance as well. Uh
So tell me how did you get yours? How did you find Jessica,
okay, yes,
marry her? Like, tell me
I
that
think
story.
for me, the way the first thing about my wife is that she was a loving person.
Okay.
The first time I we met in college, by the
Okay.
way, and I went to this Christian college, as I told you, and it's a very different culture I grew up. For example, I grew up in Haiti, where you pass by somebody, you acknowledge them, right? Hey, how are you? How was your
Uh-huh.
day? It's short conversation. And she was the first person, or not the first person, one of the few person on campus who actually initiated a conversation.
Oh,
And she didn't know me. She didn't know who I was. Say, hey, how are you? Good morning. Now, so, because she didn't fit the norm of that environment.
okay.
And then she was PK. She's a child of a pastor. So I knew she had a Christian faith. So that
Okay.
was another big requirement for me. But she is a loving type, or a person of great loyalty. This to me was the key thing that really attracted me. I mean, she loves everybody. I mean, anybody who interact with her will tell you she's sunshine, embrace everyone, and show a deep care for people. So that was
Mhm.
for me a very determinative. And I have a chance to meet her parents too, and I can see, oh, they really had a very loving type.
Okay.
As I share with you, to me, the basic formula about humanity is how you love other people.
Mhm.
Tells a lot about how you're gonna love me, how you're gonna help me supporting me toward my vision.
Mhm.
So that will be at the first thing. I think the other thing is about, you know, I think the Bible describe Eve as being a helpmate. Is,
Mhm.
how that does that person see, their role in that relationship, right? I mean,
Okay.
I think there is this, and the cultures, there's a lot of women who are poisoned by the idea of being independent,
Mhm.
um, to the point where there's a great antagonism toward
Right.
men, like I don't need men, that kind of mindset.
Right.
And I think for us, we decided very early on we're gonna build a family unit. It's as a team. We are
Mhm.
not, you know, uh, the big thing around marriage is when God says the two shall become one. That's a
Right.
mathematical problem. It's how these one plus one become one, but a one plus
Right.
one, right?
Yeah.
One plus one becomes one, and
Yeah.
in the eyes of God, and that has to take into consideration. Yeah, do we have different likes and different interests? But at the end of the day, the reason that we are united together is to build a family,
Right.
and that family unity to me, um, it's key that we are not going in two different directions, right? You're going
Right.
north and I'm going south. It's hard to do. But
Okay.
I think too, we're persons of faith. The show
Mhm.
is faith and science, and that's where guidance from God as well
Right.
is needed. I've been married now for almost 20 years.
Oh,
With my wife with 23,
yeah.
and I think she's a gift from God to me. Um,
Mhm.
I'm very complicated fellow, very weird fellow. So it
Right.
takes a really special woman to sort of deal with my idiosyncrasies,
Yeah, yeah.
and then and the Bible say if you find a woman, it is really a gift from God. So that's my
Mhm.
prayer. That's my prayer to you. I don't know
Okay.
if there are, I'm a math guy. I don't know if there is a formula that
No,
I can
so
that I
there's no
can share with
list.
you.
There's no
Yes.
list of things that I should just be like, okay, these are the things on the list, and
Yeah.
just be
Yes.
on the list. It doesn't
Yes.
work
But
like that?
yes, I'll think a good reliance on the Lord will suffice. I think you will
Okay.
receive signal,
Okay.
and hopefully you will you will be able to listen to the signals so that you don't ignore them.
Okay.
That this might be the right one. I don't know really if I, I was been gifted. That's all I can say. Although I know initially it was my wife kindness that attracted me to her.
Mhm.
uh, the simple act of kindness to greet somebody of a different culture, of you know,
Yeah.
different social class, and begin a conversation. That was She's really special. She wasn't stuck up or arrogant or value human being. I think that was the initial. But when I look back, man, I cannot take any credit for this. I think this was a gift from God,
Yeah.
uh, a gift from God, and we've lived our life around the family unit, make sacrifices to make sure we can build.
Okay. Well,
We
that's what I
can,
need to be working on then, so that's
yes,
good.
absolutely.
Okay, well, it's been almost 45 minutes now, so I'm gonna try to wind it up for you.
Yeah,
So there are 4 questions I wanna try to ask. Probably I'll do this every podcast, but and we'll
yes,
probably have to, like, when the book comes out, we'll probably specifically
yes,
just have something about that because connecting, like,
yes,
the faith side to the science side of family is actually an
yes,
interesting thing that we could talk about and
yes,
get more into how you can help me get to where you are where you are eventually.
yes.
But the first thing is what's a book that you've been looking at recently that you would recommend?
Yes,
What are you
because
recommending right now?
the topic of raising kids has been on my mind now for a while.
Yeah.
So I'm reading a book by Dr. Daniel Heyman
Hmm.
and Charles Fay. It's on how to raise mentally strong kids. And I think it's a book that is needed. It comes at the right time when you imagine all the mental health issues that young people is facing
Right.
in the world. I think this is a necessary. It's a book that comes at the right time to help address and give parents some tips to uh, help raising kids that are mentally strong,
Okay.
uh, and an age where we're having a crisis, a mental health crisis among young
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Yeah.
name of that book is How to Raise Mentally
Mentally
Strong Kids.
strong kids. Mm-hmm. By
Okay.
Dr. Daniel Heyman. He's
Okay.
a MD, psychiatrist, I believe, and then Dr. Charles Fay is a psychologist. So you are getting a very
And
interesting
both, yeah, yeah.
approach to it.
That's an interesting mix. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, interesting mix. Uh-huh.
Okay. All
Yes.
right. What's an interesting quote or scripture that you've been thinking a lot about recently?
Yes, the one I've been thinking about is found in First Corinthians, the first chapter, verse 30th. It says,
Okay.
Christ was made unto us wisdom, righteousness, sanctification, and redemption. And
Mm,
that quote, to me, I see a framework for transformation, and I can go,
okay.
I can go longer than that,
Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, go ahead. I think you can
Okay,
ask
okay, wisdom, righteousness,
sanctification and
sanctification,
redemption.
and redemption. And you're saying
Yes,
that this is there could be a larger framework here to
yes,
just general transformation. Okay, I
yes,
want to break
correct.
it down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can just elaborate quickly. So
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I flip this verse in his head, I'll start first by redemption, right? Which is This. So you can think this as being a scale where you walk up from redemption, sanctification, righteousness, and wisdom is the summit,
Hmm.
is the high point. So I'll begin there as redemption. To me, as that's the way I can see transformation of an individual, transformation of a society. Uh, and the way I read this is is I will just make an analogy. How do you save a fish that is fell itself in a poison lake? Um, and I can go deeper into the way I think about this.
Okay.
But I think one of the first way you will save that fish is that you will pull that fish out of that environment.
Hmm.
Um, Pulling out the environment to me is a redemptive work, right? I think in Colossians it says God took us out of the kingdom of darkness and put us into the kingdom of light. Right?
Right.
Redemption is not only about a price uh, uh, God paid for our freedom, but also it's about uh, a change in location that
Right.
happened, a change from the environment that happened from the kingdom of darkness and into the kingdom of light. The other is around sanctification, right? If
Hmm.
I take that fish in that poison lake, there are, I just cannot drop it in a new lake, on a cleaner lake, without cleaning that fish, right?
Right.
Because if the fish was in the poison lake, it's all the chemicals, it's all on its skin, but also the poison is also on the inside as well.
Right.
So it has to be washed. It has to be clean. And we see this model too when somebody is dealing with drug, right? They go to a detox center,
Hmm.
pull them out from their environment. But in the process, they are doing a deeper work with them to help them to clean themselves. So I do believe there are things that we need to be washed from, both from the inside and also and the end, and both from outside and the inside. That's what sanctification does. The other one is about righteousness. Well, if you clean the fish, you make the fish vomit the poison. You have to give the fish something new to
Hmm.
sustain it. And I think righteousness to me is is the process where God imparted His nature into us, to His Holy Spirit. Where now we have a new kind of identity. Um, we are transformed, as
Hmm.
Paul says, by renewing our mind. And then wisdom to me is when we begin to walk on the light, and the light of the fact that we are redeemed, that we are sanctified, that we are righteous, we can work in that light because wisdom and light are are connected. So now I have a new way of approaching life, a new way of seeing the world, a
Right.
new way of living. So that's what I call a model for transformation. And it has been something I've been thinking about. Christ is indeed our my wisdom, my redemption, my righteousness, my redemption,
Okay.
and my my sanctification and my redemption.
Right.
Mhm.
Huh. That's, I'll have to look at that.
Mhm.
Okay. So
Mm.
what is something you believe that many other people don't believe?
That's a good one, Doc. And you that's something that that's a very good one. Um, when it become especially to political power, um, I believe math is the key.
Math is the
Um,
key.
yes, that political power, a lot of political power requires that you have a majority.
Hmm.
and it's, and so for me, as long as you, as long, how can I explain that? It's a belief that I have, especially when I look at a racism in and the United States in particular. Is really a matter of numbers, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, if the population is flipped, you will have a different way people approach uh, that issue. So, as long as you are in the minority, you are you are going to be lacking power.
Mm.
And to me, that's what I have an interest in population growth in particular. That obviously I do believe education as well. We do not want to have a massive population without them to being educated. But I do believe, for example, racism in the United States can be solved if you have if the majority is flipped. And wherever you find, by the way, I don't know if I'm working on scary territory, but the reason I'm sharing this is because I do believe that the that the behavior of people is driven by the power they hold, and the power they hold is because that they are large in numbers. Now, was to me, what I meant by that is if power is flipped because the majority is flipped, I don't think necessarily behavior will be different than what we see among different groups.
Mm.
So for the minority groups that are trying to find a sense of justice in the world, uh, the appeal to more ideals can help, but that may not be sufficient if you don't have the number to support it. But
Mm.
that's, that's a
Yeah.
very, you ask for
I can
unconventional.
I can imagine a lot of people wouldn't like to hear that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
That's
So
interesting. Yeah.
I don't know if you're gonna cut that out, but
Oh
it's
no,
a
I mean it's
very
fine. It's fine to me. I mean, again, it yeah. Um, there's an environmental aspect to this, I think,
yeah,
that drives some of the racism for sure. So yeah, that's interesting.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. Okay. Fourth question. If there was one thing you needed to leave behind, piece of wisdom, let's say for your daughters, what would that wisdom be?
I think the big thing for me is helping them to root their identity in Christ. Um, the the world is going to change in many ways, but I feel if they are rooted in a sense of who they are and how God sees them, and they get a sense of how God loved them,
Hmm.
that will allow them to grow and have, I know, that will allow them to grow as a human being and be deeply rooted in a sense that they are value and love, and that love is not dependent on somebody's feelings, but it is, rooted in God.
Mm.
I think that's what I wanted to teach them, because even when I look at the temptation of Christ, it was the first series of that was around questioning Christ's identity. Uh, I think it's in the book of, is it John what, or Luke? Well, the
Yeah,
first
Matthew and Luke.
chapter,
Yeah.
yes, the first chapter, God clearly reveals that this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased.
Mhm.
Really expressed. Everybody heard that. Um, and then in the next chapter, the devil. began to tempt Christ about if you are really the Son of God. Did he not hear? I think whole creation heard that God declares, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased." And in the next chapter, he says, "If you are the Son of God." Where
Mhm.
were you, man? Did you not hear? And
Yeah.
yeah, that God and did declare, "This is my Son." And
Yeah.
I think if, with all of us, if our sense of identity is taken away from us, we are left with nothing. And I
Mhm.
think that that's what I want to teach them is who they are in Christ. And this is going to be the point where they are going to be tempted. It's the world and the system's going to ask, is going to come at them and says, really, are you the daughter of are you God's daughter?
Yeah.
That's the lesson I want. At least if I can teach them that heritage, that
Yeah.
you are deeply loved by God and cared by Him, and you are what you are because of He says or what He says about you.
Okay.
Hmm.
That's a good one.
Yes,
How if somebody wants to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
I am in LinkedIn, so that's another way people can can reach me.
Mhm.
Um, the
So you have
my
social media and
yes, I am on Facebook. That's about just
okay. Yeah,
not so much, but
mainly LinkedIn would
yeah,
be the
mainly
main way.
LinkedIn is the main way. I don't have any YouTube channel yet.
Okay.
We'll have some.
Is your book coach trying to get you to do, like, Instagram or
At
or
some point, I
YouTube or
think
something?
yeah, at some point, I think she will get there.
Okay.
But I and that's a weakness of mine. I need to master those things if you're gonna be
Mm,
somebody of influence. I think you need to have a channel or distribution
right.
channel to make that happen. But LinkedIn is really
Okay.
the main way for now.
Alright.
Uh, but and again, thank you for the opportunity.
No, no problem.
Yeah.
This has been good. Um, like I said, when that book comes out, then that'll be a good, maybe you'll be going on a bunch of other podcasts or something for the book.
But I will.
Um,
I'll have to make sure I.
yeah, you come back to my little podcast
Yeah,
when
yeah.
when the, when the book
Actually,
comes out.
yeah, you are one of the first podcasts I have
Oh, okay.
decided to do, and I I do have some strange and peculiar belief, which
Okay, yeah, that
I I share one here, but it's been a really pleasure knowing you, Doc, and
Mhm,
I know the good Lord will take you places. You have so much to offer, especially to see a young, you know, I'm older than you. I can use that word, but
okay.
we need so much of folks like you in that space
Mhm,
that others can see as a model or what's possible, right? It's not common to see um, a young African American succeed in
mhm,
the space of artificial intelligence. We need more of you. So I think uh, I hope that others, because I mean, others will see you as a model. If I have a lot of when I was studying math, we
mhm.
used to have a website for African American
Oh,
mathematician,
mhm,
and I used to go there to find inspiration. These are people I didn't know, but the
mhm.
fact there was a simple biography, I could see myself through them, and
Yeah,
I think that is the image that young people would look at you and says, yeah, that's possible because
yeah,
Jerry did it. Um, I can do so. I want to thank you for pursuing that,
yeah,
and then to show to young people, yes, you belong to this space. This is possible. Obviously, it was hard work. You didn't do it by chance, but if
mhm,
you are dedicated, you put the work to it,
yeah,
you too can achieve great things. So That's why I
Yeah.
was very when I met you on that table, man. I was like,
Yeah, that
yes,
yeah,
these
you
are
were
the
like, "Hey."
kind. these are the kind of these are the we need our young people to be to know what's possible, and you've
Yeah,
proven that that it can be done. So, props to you,
yeah, I
props to your
appreciate it.
family, and very proud of you. And hopefully, anything I can do to help you advance that, so that more people would see, would know about you, and see that yes, yeah, you can be an artificial intelligence specialist.
Okay,
Mhm.
yeah, you this was from yeah, this when I say this was a month ago, you were saying this same stuff to me and I was like, "Oh, okay." I
Yeah.
wasn't thinking like that, but
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yes.
appreciate yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us on the
Mm.
Faith Science Podcast. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast or to the YouTube channel, wherever you're seeing this. And until next time, keep asking questions and keep the faith. Thank you.
Thank you.